This episode is made possible by PwC. The future calls for digital transformation you can trust. That's why the new equation is business-led and cloud-forward, using secure technologies to drive tax-efficient solutions for today and tomorrow. It's how people and technology work together to transform transformation. See how the new equation is building trust and security with the latest tech at thenewequation.com.
Presented by Climate Power. America, let's do what we do best. Build. We have an opportunity to rebuild our economy, fight climate change, and create millions of jobs in the fastest growing industry in the country, clean energy. But we must grab this moment before it slips away. American workers are ready. Now, Congress, it's up to you. We can achieve our clean energy future if we act now.
You've heard the screamers, the shouters, the haters, the beraters. Now it's time to listen to real conversation. Rational conversation. Now it's time for the Rick Unger Show. And now, here's Rick Unger.
Welcome back to the Rick Unger Show on this Thursday edition. You know, it had been my expectation, and I think the expectation of quite a few people, that having heard Joe Biden talk about his approach to a federal cannabis policy, that we were going to see a fairly sympathetic White House when it came to extending the opportunities to access cannabis, particularly for those who rely on it for medicinal purposes. Now, we've seen lots of movement in the states, to be sure, but there really are some things that the federal government could do that would make this a much easier experience, again, particularly for those who need it medicinally. Instead, so far, we've seen people being fired from the White House because of past use of cannabis, which frankly just shocked me. There's a lot of questions here, and we thought that would be an interesting idea to try and address some of those questions. Here to help us do that is Steph Scherer. She is the founder and president of Americans for Safe Access. They are the largest national member-based organization of patients, medical professionals, scientists, and concerned citizens promoting safe and legal access to cannabis for therapeutic use and research. Steph, great to have you on the program.
Thank you so much for having me.
So your organization is primarily involved not with the legalization of cannabis for recreational uses, but you're really focused on therapeutic uses. Before we even get into what feels like something of an about-face from this White House, I'm very curious to know what you have learned about the therapeutic use of cannabis over these many years.
Well, thank you for that question, because I think we do spend a lot of time on the politics, and the reality is that there are millions of Americans for which there are not suitable treatments for the medical conditions they have. If traditional medicines could take care of those symptoms, there would be no issue of medical cannabis. But the reality is that cannabis is a safe medicine that interacts with numerous systems in the body, that provides relief with very little side effects. And so when you're looking at everything from pain to movement disorders to digestive issues, the reason cannabis works is that's where that's how the medicine works within the body. The receptors that match with cannabis just happen to be in your intestines, in your brain, on your skin, and really provide relief without severe side effects. And millions of Americans are looking for a better choice to opioids. They're looking for a better choice for dealing with chronic conditions. And I think a lot of medicines that are available are what we would call emergency medicines, right? They're really good for patching you up right away. But we look at Americans that are dealing with chronic conditions like chronic pain. They need solutions for medications that they can take every day that aren't going to ruin the rest of their body. So we really see them.
So, Steph, we know that this is one of the problems. The federal government has largely prohibited the use of cannabis in these studies. Therefore, it's tough to get them. Nevertheless, there have been some controlled clinical trials that have produced these results. I'm just, if I'm somebody, and I will tell you, I have been somebody in the past when I was being treated with chemotherapy for cancer, I was legally able in California to access a prescription for cannabis, and it was useful. It was helpful. If I am somebody who is dealing with some of the problems that you just mentioned, where do I go to get the information with respect to what studies there may be?
So this is something that our organization does. We compile information for both doctors and patients. So you can go to safeaccessnow.org and look at the Cannabis Care Certification Program. And we have educational booklets and videos for doctors and patients to help them make this decision. We don't believe that cannabis is for everyone, but we think that everyone should have the best information to make educated decisions about adding cannabis therapeutics into their treatment regimens.
Got it. If you are just joining this conversation, by the way, we are speaking with Steph Shearer. She is the founder and president of Americans for Safe Access. This is an organization that focuses on the benefits of cannabis when it comes to your health and certain health problems. All right, Steph, let's turn now to, well, I guess the politics of it. My sense of this when Joe Biden would speak about this during his campaign is that we were going to see a lot of these restrictions, particularly when it comes to research. We were going to see those restrictions lifted with a more, well, let's say, modern understanding that there's nothing to lose and much to gain by doing this research to know if cannabis does have the medicinal benefits and effects that many of us already believe that it does have. Do you feel that that is still on the agenda, or is it your sense that there is a backing off here?
I believe that every politician says something to try to get votes. And I think what we're seeing right now with Biden is we're seeing an issue, unfortunately, we've seen a lot with medical cannabis, which is NIMBYism, right? Not in my backyard. So cannabis users and medical cannabis users are good enough to vote for Biden to get him elected for president, but for some reason they're not good enough to work for him. And, in a way, this is absolute discrimination. And, we believe at Americans for Safe Access that Biden should, through the Office of Personnel and Management, just take away the restriction of testing for cannabis. This is something that many states have done. And the reason you can't just say that you're going to not test medical cannabis patients is that under ADA laws, you can't ask a person that is working for you or is going to work for you if they have a medical condition. And so if you're drug testing only some people, that would require a patient to have to disclose their medical cannabis use. And so what we believe is that this is just an outdated practice. There are many guidelines for how to do drug testing in the workplace for high-risk jobs. We see this with other medications. That should be applied to cannabis, and then we don't have to have this conversation. But absolutely, I think we knew that Biden was not going to put this on the front burner. There's obviously a lot happening in the world right now. We appreciate that and we understand that. But during the pandemic, almost every state with a medical cannabis law made cannabis an essential business right next to pharmacies. These states know that patients need access to this medication. And these businesses not only kept patients healthy, but they also kept millions of Americans employed during this very strenuous time. So we know that the White House is busy, but the Biden-Harris administration needs to look at the promises they made to voters and make some simple changes. We realize Congress needs to get involved, but right away, they can just stop drug testing federal employees. They can tell veterans doctors that they can talk to veterans about cannabis, and they can stop evicting people from HUD housing who have to use medical cannabis. Yeah, these are very simple. Yeah,
all really good points, to be sure. I have to say that my sense is not that this is about having too many other things on the agenda that would take the place. I mean, if that's what it was, why fire 6 people because of past cannabis use? Whether that use was recreational or whether it was medicinal, I mean, what's that got to do with your current priorities? I just found that to be profoundly disturbing. something
It's very disturbing.
from
And
the dark
it's not the
ages.
Yeah, it's not the first we've heard of this within the administration. We've heard of lots of people actually not making the vetting process because of not even cannabis use, but being associated with cannabis businesses. So we know this is much deeper than this one situation. And really it is, it's very offensive. I mean, again, Biden and Harris, they went out and tried to get the cannabis vote.
Yes.
They made specific decisions to do that. And right now we have a majority of Americans living in states where medical cannabis is legal. And to say that one of us is not allowed to work in the White House is absolutely offensive.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. I think it's very strange. Listen, let's take a break here, Steph. We got a lot more to talk about in regard to where things stand at the federal level on cannabis. We will do that when we continue with Steph Shearer here on The Rick Unger Show. Stay with us. A lot more to do.
Call Rick now, 833-711-7425. That's 833-711-RICK.
Angie's List is now Angie. Summer is the perfect time to book your next home project. From lawn care to a new patio, Angie makes it simple to connect with pros who can get the job done right. See reviews, upfront pricing, and instantly book hundreds of projects. Plus, when you book and pay through Angie, we'll cover your project up to the full purchase price, plus limited damage protection with our Happiness Guarantee. Check out Angie.com, and for more on the Happiness Guarantee, go to Angie.com/happiness-guarantee.htm.
In the fight against COVID-19, testing offers another layer of protection in addition to vaccines. Go to vdh.virginia.gov and search by zip code to find a free COVID-19 test near you. A message from your Virginia Department of Health.
This episode is made possible by PwC. When you bring together human ingenuity, passion, and experience with the latest technology, the future starts to look a whole lot smarter. Which is why the new equation is meeting the future of work today with ProEdge. Digitally upskill your entire organization to keep ahead of the curve and drive growth. Learn more at thenewequation.com.
This is Rick Unger, and I want to thank you for listening to the Rick Unger Show Daily Podcast. Now, to listen to the full show ad-free, go to rickungershow.com and click on Premium Podcast at the top of the page.
Can't find a rational conversation on Twitter? Try Rational Radio. The Rick Unger Show.
Welcome back to the Rick Unger Show on this Thursday edition, or pre-Freaky Friday Eve, I like to call it. If you are just joining us, we have been having a conversation about, well, the White House appearing to back off what had felt like a commitment to pushing forward with cannabis research and making things a little bit easier when it comes to the use of cannabis in this country. It really does seem like they have backed away from it. As you no doubt are aware, we've even seen 6 people who had been employed by the White House lose their jobs simply because of prior use of cannabis. We are having the conversation with Steph Shearer. Steph is the founder and president of Americans for Safe Access. They are the largest national member-based organization of patients, medical professionals, scientists, and concerned citizens who are promoting safe and legal access to cannabis for therapeutic use and research. Steph, thanks for staying with us for another segment. Bring us up to speed on where we are at the state level, particularly when it comes to medicinal cannabis. How many states now have finally made that legal?
So we're at 38 states and most of the territories, the U.S. territories. So D.C., Guam, Puerto Rico, Islands all have medical cannabis as well.
Okay. And as we look at, there have been times when we had states legalizing the use, particularly for medicinal. Now we have quite a few states that have also legalized it for recreational. But we have seen times when the federal government, having opposing laws, would kind of stick their nose in, come and raid cannabis stores, even though they were legal under the state rules. What's the status of that? Do we still see federal involvement in these things?
So in some agencies, our organization actually passed an amendment to the budget that now is adopted every year that prohibits the Department of Justice from spending money and going after medical cannabis. And so that was a huge lift for the medical cannabis patients. It took us quite a long time to get that passed, but we have enjoyed sort of having the Department of Justice out of at least the legal component. But we do see, and invite actually other agencies like the EPA and OSHA and other agencies to be involved. But what we would like to see is that done in a more organized fashion. So our organization is actually calling for what most countries are doing. There are 45 countries now that have legalized medical cannabis. And this year, the UN actually rescheduled cannabis to recognize its medical use. So internationally, countries need to start moving forward with medical cannabis. And what we're asking the federal government to do is create an Office of Medical Cannabis, like all the other countries have done, and basically oversee what the states are doing. Now, this means states would still get to run their programs. They've done a great job. But through the Office of Medical Cannabis, we would see all these crazy issues like drug testing, medical cannabis patients, the lack of interstate commerce, all of these things would go away. States would still get to decide where dispensaries are, all of these components. But we would see a working relationship with the federal government and the states rather than this sort of odd relationship we have now where the Department of Justice isn't supposed to do anything, but there's no clear guidance of what the other agencies should be doing. And, we want to see, we want to make sure that the workers in these places are protected. We want to make sure that there aren't harmful pesticides and that there's product safety protocols. And we think this is really where the federal government could play an amazing role. But, this is where Biden and Harris need to ask Congress for comprehensive legislation.
All right.
And Congress is ready to give it to them, but they need to hear, this movement. And of course, the actions of the Biden administration of late, kind of hamper that possibility.
All right. So as you try and sell this idea, and it seems to me to be a perfectly good one, to the administration, what are the politics of it that you see out there? It would be my thought, and this is based on absolutely nothing, but what I think I see out there, that this would not be a big political risk to the White House, specifically if you create this kind of an office as you propose it, to deal strictly with the medical use and research of marijuana. I don't think you lose a lot of votes in America today by doing that. Maybe you can argue that if you're supporting recreational use, maybe there's still a lot of people who oppose that. I don't really know, but I find it hard to believe that there is any risk in supporting research into the use of cannabis to ease pain and for other reasons. My goodness, we know that Senator Harris, when she was a senator, she wanted to totally change the registration of what marijuana is. So what risk is there?
There's no risk except for, maybe a view of his personal history. I mean, Biden does have a long history with being one of the architects of the drug war. So he has been anti-cannabis for a long time. And I think, he spent a lot of time trying to tell America that he can learn from his mistakes. And here's a place where he definitely is not. And as I said before, with the majority of Americans now living in a place where their doctor can recommend that they use cannabis, that we have, so many Americans with having this experience. The fact that this president won't allow one in his office and to work for him is just completely out of touch and offensive. And so
antithetical to the way that I perceive Joe Biden's personality. I mean, here's a guy who spends a lot of time feeling my pain, and yet if he didn't want it for recreational purposes, I would say, well, okay, that's a little old fashioned, but what are you going to do? He's 78 years old. But when you won't even allow a concerted effort to research medicinal benefits, when there is already so much to tell us that it can do a lot of people a lot of good in easing their actual pain, that it just doesn't match up.
Well, not only that, but I think it's also, we hear a lot from Biden and other politicians about healthcare, right, and about providing good care for Americans. And the reality is, it doesn't matter, whether people have insurance access or not. There are millions of Americans that cannot be treated by medications that are currently offered. And what we're seeing in states that have medical cannabis laws, we're seeing opioid deaths go down by as much as 25% because people have a safer access to deal with their pain, or a safer alternative to deal with their pain. We're seeing drug costs go down for pain medications, for antidepressants. These are real costs to the state.
Allow me to interrupt you. I apologize, but we have a hard break and we are at the end, so we got to go. We have been talking with Steph Shearer, founder and president of Americans for Safe Access. Real quick, Steph, how do people get in touch with you?
They can go to our website, safeaccessnow.org.
Okay, do that if this...
.org.
I'm sorry, was there more and I interrupted you?
Nope, that was it. I was just repeating myself.
Okay.
A good advocate.
All right. So we got to get out of here. Steph Shearer, we really appreciate the time. If you're interested in this topic, you should be. Go to their website. We will continue with more of The Rick Unger Show right after this.
Want a rational conversation? Call 833-711-7425. 833-711-RICK.
Thanks for listening to the Rick Unger Show Daily Podcast. You can hear the rest of the show ad-free by going to rickungershow.com and clicking on Premium Podcast at the top of the page.
This episode is made possible by PwC. The future calls for digital transformation you can trust. That's why the new equation is business-led and cloud-forward, using secure technologies to drive tax-efficient solutions for today and tomorrow. It's how people and technology work together to transform transformation. See how the new equation is building trust and security with the latest tech at thenewequation.com.
With Sunmade, whole fruits natural sweetness opens a world of imaginative snacks. Take a sweet or sour adventure with fruity raisin snacks. Chill on creamy, delicious yogurt-covered raisins. And for ultimate yumminess, try s'mores granola bites. Because with Sunmade snacks, goodness really is delicious. Get a taste at sunmade.com/imagine that.